Gemini. September 2026 becomes a month when changes involving your home, personal life, and future plans begin to come together into one larger picture. The first half of the month is centered around family, your living situation, and creating a more stable foundation. As you move toward the end of September, love, creativity, children, personal projects, and the question of what you genuinely want for yourself become increasingly important. On September 11, the new moon in Virgo falls in your fourth house, opening a new cycle around home, family, real estate, and where you live. This could coincide with a move, a renovation, a search for a new home, real estate paperwork, or a new chapter in your family life. For some of you, there may be fewer visible external events, but an important decision emerges around the way your life is organized. Where you want to live, who you want to live with, which responsibilities still make sense, and what kind of personal space you need in order to continue growing. On September 26th, the full moon in Aries falls in your 11th house and brings results or a culmination involving friendships, collaborative projects, your audience or community, and long-term goals. A group project may reach completion, a team could change, the future of a professional community may become clearer, or you may finally recognize which plans are worth continuing to pursue. These two lunations connect your personal foundation with your future. A change in where you live could affect your social circle or professional plans. A new chapter in your family life may require you to redistribute your time differently. And a decision involving a major project could require changes in the way your home life is currently structured. September helps you understand what kind of life you need to create now, in order for the goals you have for the next several years to actually become possible. One of the major themes of the month is Venus, which is already moving through the territory of its upcoming retrograde cycle. Venus will station retrograde in Scorpio on October 3. This means that September's developments involving love, creativity, and work are really the opening chapter of a much longer story. Until September 10, Venus is in Libra and your fifth house. This brings a stronger emphasis to love, dating, creativity, children, and personal projects. You may feel a greater desire to spend time on what genuinely brings you pleasure, develop something that carries your own creative signature, or take a romantic relationship to a new level. On September 10, Venus enters Scorpio and your sixth house. From this point forward, your personal desires have to be integrated much more closely with the realities of everyday life. Work, your schedule, relationships with coworkers, health, and the organization of your daily routine become increasingly important. A project that once existed primarily as a hobby may now require consistent effort and a more structured approach. A relationship may require changes to your usual routines. And questions about whether your work is genuinely satisfying begin to become part of Venus's larger retrograde story. Until September 23, the Sun remains in Virgo, in your fourth house. The first part of the month therefore supports dealing with housing, family matters, private concerns, and the creation of a stronger personal foundation. Once the Sun enters Libra, the focus shifts toward your fifth house. There is a stronger desire to express yourself, develop a personal project, focus on love or creativity, or give more attention to matters involving children. If the first half of September is about creating space for a new chapter, the second half begins to reveal what you actually want to fill that space with. The larger purpose of September is to build a foundation capable of supporting bigger plans. The new moon begins a new chapter in the structure of your personal life. The full moon reveals results involving your future goals and the people around you. Meanwhile, Jupiter, together with Mars entering your third house at the end of the month, gradually opens a new phase of communication, learning, networking, and promoting your ideas. September helps you understand where the center of your life needs to be, which people you want beside you as you build your future, and which personal projects truly deserve more space. Now let's take a closer look at the month, date by date. September 1. Mars in Cancer and your second house forms a challenging aspect to retrograde Saturn in Aries and your 11th house. The beginning of September may require you to reconcile your financial reality with your long-term plans. A collaborative project, involvement in a professional community, or a goal you're pursuing for the future may require additional investment. Or you may simply need a much clearer understanding of how much money, time, and energy you're actually willing to devote to it. You may realize that the original plan is simply too expensive and needs a different financial model. Or a financial limitation may actually help you recognize which goal is truly the priority. At the same time, Mercury in Virgo and your fourth house forms a harmonious aspect to Mars in your second house. A conversation involving family or your living situation can help you resolve a financial matter more quickly. This is a productive time to discuss your budget, housing expenses, renovations, a possible move, or a major purchase that will affect the way your life is organized going forward. September 6 to 9. Venus continues moving through Libra and your 5th house. These days bring greater attention to romantic relationships, creativity, children, and personal projects. You may feel ready to develop something that brings you genuine enjoyment, spend more time on a relationship, or return to an idea you've been postponing for a long time. On September 8th, Venus forms a harmonious aspect to the lunar nodes. A personal project, romantic relationship, or situation involving children could influence your longer-term plans, education, travel, or international interests. For example, a creative direction could introduce your work to a new audience. A new relationship could change the way you imagine your future. Or a decision involving a child could reshape educational plans or the practical organization of everyday life. On September 9th, Venus forms a harmonious aspect to Lilith in Sagittarius and your 7th house. Relationships may become more candid and emotionally direct. But it is important not to provoke a reaction simply because you need reassurance about someone's feelings. Being honest about what you want will be far more productive than testing a partner through jealousy, emotional pressure, or unspoken expectations. September 10, Venus enters Scorpio and your 6th house. After a more personal, romantic, and creative period, the focus gradually moves toward work, routines, everyday responsibilities, and the practical organization of your life. You may begin questioning whether your current work is genuinely satisfying, whether your schedule still works for you, and which conditions need to change. A personal project could begin transitioning into regular work, requiring a much clearer system and greater consistency. Because Venus is already moving through the territory of its upcoming retrograde cycle, decisions involving work and personal priorities in September may be revisited during the fall. On the same day, Venus forms a challenging aspect to Chiron in Taurus and your 12th house. Your workload may reveal underlying exhaustion or dissatisfaction that has been easier to ignore while staying busy. You may realize that constant productivity has become a way of avoiding something that has needed an emotional decision for quite some time. Also on September 10, Mercury enters Libra and your 5th house. This begins a much more expressive period for communication, creativity, dating, working with children, and developing your own projects. It is an excellent time to present ideas, write, speak publicly, teach, or work on anything where your individuality and personal voice are important. On the same day, Uranus stations retrograde in Gemini and your 1st house. Changes that have already begun in your lifestyle, appearance, identity, or sense of self now require another look. You may realize that the first version of your new direction was too radical, or perhaps not bold enough. Retrograde Uranus gives you an opportunity to understand more precisely what you truly want to change about yourself and your life. September 11th, new moon in Virgo in your 4th house. The new moon opens a new cycle involving home, family, real estate, and your personal foundation. A move, renovation, search for a new home, or real estate paperwork could begin around this time. You may make an important decision to live independently, change a shared living arrangement, or redistribute responsibilities within the family. A Virgo new moon requires specifics. If this concerns housing, you need to understand the budget, timeline, and actual terms. If this concerns family, the important questions are who is responsible for what, and which arrangements genuinely work in everyday life. Selena is also in your 4th house, so support may come through sensible decisions, reliable family members, or a knowledgeable professional who helps you calmly navigate a practical, domestic, or property-related matter. September 12th, Mercury in Libra and your 5th house forms a harmonious aspect to Pluto in Aquarius and your 9th house, while also forming a challenging aspect to Neptune in Aries and your 11th house. A creative idea, conversation, or personal project may begin moving in a much more serious direction. The harmonious connection with Pluto helps you understand which knowledge, subjects, or forms of self-expression have real potential for long-term development. For those of you working with content, education, publishing, or your own audience, this aspect can bring a powerful idea, concept, or format. However, the opposition to Neptune requires caution around group projects and agreements with friends. Don't mistake a promise for actual support until you know exactly what the other person is prepared to contribute. September 14th, Mercury in your 5th house forms a harmonious aspect to retrograde Uranus in your 1st house. An unexpected idea may help you express yourself in an entirely new way. You could discover an unconventional creative format, decide to change the direction of a personal project, or suddenly feel ready to show a side of yourself that you haven't previously shared very openly. This can also be an interesting day for relationships. A new connection or unexpected conversation may quickly change your perception of another person and of your own desires. On September 14th, Lilith enters Capricorn and your 8th house. Over the coming months, be especially mindful around shared finances, jealousy, control, and dependency. Avoid using money or intimacy as leverage over another person, and be equally careful about accepting this dynamic from someone else. September 15th, Venus in Scorpio and your 6th house forms a challenging aspect to retrograde Pluto in Aquarius and your 9th house. This is one of the most significant aspects of the month when it comes to work, education, and your future direction. You may realize that your current professional routine no longer supports the direction in which you actually want to grow. Education, a new project, or an international opportunity could require you to change your schedule, responsibilities, or even your entire working arrangement. The question may become very practical. Do you continue with familiar work, or begin creating room for a path that appears to have greater long-term potential? In relationships, this aspect may reveal a difference in lifestyle or future plans. One person wants to expand, explore, and move forward, while the other prefers to preserve the current structure. Because Venus is already moving through its retrograde territory, the events of mid-September will not necessarily provide a final answer. But they can show you very clearly where your everyday life must be reorganized in order to support your next chapter. September 18th, Chiron returns to Aries and your 11th house, once again bringing your attention to friendships, communities, collaborative projects, and long-term goals. A situation that came up before may return. Uncertainty about your place within a particular group, disappointment in a collaboration, or the feeling that your plans aren't receiving the support you expected. But now, the more important question isn't how other people are responding to you. It's whether the goal itself is genuinely yours. This may involve an audience, a professional community, or a team. You may stop measuring your direction by the group's reaction and become much clearer about the result you want to achieve, regardless of external approval. During this same period, Mercury in Libra and your 5th house forms a challenging aspect to retrograde Saturn in Aries and your 11th house. A personal project has to be reconciled with the demands of a team, an audience, or a long-term strategy. You may discover that an exciting idea needs more time, preparation, or resources before it can realistically be presented to other people. In relationships, there may be a need to choose between personal desires and social obligations. Plans with friends, collaborative work, or responsibilities to others may limit the time you would prefer to spend on romance, children, or your own interests. Saturn is useful here because it helps you distinguish between an idea that is genuinely worth developing and a temporary enthusiasm. September 22nd, Mercury in Libra and your 5th house forms a harmonious aspect to Jupiter in Leo and your 3rd house. This is one of the most productive aspects of the month for communication, learning, creativity, and promoting your ideas. A conversation could lead to an interesting opportunity. A publication could expand your audience. A creative project could gain momentum through marketing, social media, education, or new connections. This is an excellent time for negotiations, presentations, recording content, promoting a project, writing, teaching, speaking, and taking exams. The aspect is also favorable for your personal life. You could meet someone while traveling, through a class, online, or through mutual connections. In an existing relationship, it becomes easier to discuss shared plans and find something new that both of you genuinely enjoy. Jupiter in your 3rd house expands your informational and social world, while Mercury in your 5th house helps you turn what you're learning into an idea, project, or product of your own. September 23rd, the Sun enters Libra and your 5th house. Love, creativity, children, personal projects, hobbies, and the freedom to spend more time on what you personally choose now move into the foreground. The end of September could bring the launch of a personal project, greater attention to a relationship, or an important decision involving a child. The 5th house is also connected with showing your work and your talents to other people. So something that was being developed more privately during the first half of September can now gradually become more visible. September 26, full moon in Aries in your 11th house. This full moon brings culmination to matters involving friends, groups, professional communities, your audience, and long-term goals. A project that has been developing over the past several months may reach an important milestone. You may finally understand whether you want to continue working with a particular team, remain part of a certain community, or move forward independently. This could coincide with the completion of a collaborative project, a concrete result, audience growth, new support, or an invitation to join another project. Your social circle may also begin to change. A relationship with a friend or a group of people may reveal its true potential, making it much clearer which connections genuinely have a future. This full moon activates your 5th 11th house axis, so the balance between your own desires and the interests of the group becomes especially important. If you have spent too long shaping a personal project around the expectations of your audience or team, the end of September can bring your attention back to what is genuinely meaningful to you. If, on the other hand, an idea has existed only as a private passion, this may be the moment when an opportunity appears to bring it to a much wider audience. At nearly the same time, the Sun in your 5th house forms a challenging aspect to Neptune in your 11th house and a harmonious aspect to Pluto in your 9th house. the opposition to Neptune requires a realistic assessment of collective plans. Beautiful ideas, promises of collaboration, or assumptions about audience interest need to be compared with actual results. At the same time, the harmonious Sun-Pluto aspect reveals a much more serious direction for growth. A personal project may begin developing an educational, international, or publishing dimension. Knowledge you have accumulated could become the foundation for your own course, publication, or entirely new professional direction. So the end of September is not only about completing one collective chapter, it is also about understanding where your own idea could go next. September 27 to 28. Before changing signs, Mars in the final degrees of Cancer and your second house forms a challenging aspect to Chiron in Aries and your 11th house. A financial issue may intersect with a group project or your long-term goals. You may need to invest money in development, education, promotion, or team support. But it is important not to measure the value of a project by the amount of money you are willing to spend on it. If a particular goal continually requires investment without showing clear potential, this is a good time to review the numbers again. Questions may also arise around compensation within a shared project. Are income and expenses divided fairly? Does your compensation reflect your actual contribution? And are you willing to continue working under the same conditions? On September 28th, Mars enters Leo in your third house. The pace of life noticeably accelerates. Over the coming weeks, there are likely to be more negotiations, meetings, messages, travel, paperwork, and learning. You may begin actively promoting a project, launching an information campaign, starting a course, or entering a very busy period of working with clients and an audience. Jupiter is already in your third house, so the combination of Mars and Jupiter can significantly increase the number of contacts and opportunities around you. One conversation leads to another. A new acquaintance opens the door to a project. Information allows you to make decisions more quickly. The main challenge is not to scatter your attention in too many directions. There may be more opportunities available, but not every one of them requires an immediate response. On the same day, the Sun in your fifth house forms a harmonious aspect to retrograde Uranus in your first house. An unexpected decision could significantly change a personal project or the way you express yourself. A new format, image, idea, or desire to do something that once felt too unconventional may emerge. In your personal life, this aspect helps you break out of a repeating pattern. You may respond differently to a familiar situation, or allow yourself to explore a relationship that does not fit your old assumptions about how things are supposed to look. September 29. Mercury in Libra and your fifth house forms a harmonious aspect to the lunar nodes, and a challenging aspect to Chiron in Aries. A conversation, publication, creative decision, or event involving a child may influence your longer-term plans. A personal project could begin leading toward education, teaching, an international audience, or a new professional direction. Information received now helps you see the potential of the idea on a much larger scale than you originally imagined. At the same time, Mercury's opposition to Chiron reveals a sensitive point in your interaction with groups and communities. The response from your audience, friends, or colleagues may not be what you expected. It is important not to change your position simply to win the approval of a group. A more useful question is, who is this idea really for, and which people are genuinely the right ones to help you develop it? September 30th, Mercury enters Scorpio in your sixth house. Together with Venus, Mercury shifts your focus toward work, organization, schedules, and concrete responsibilities. If September has brought many new ideas, connections, and possibilities, the end of the month introduces a very practical question. How are you going to fit all of this into your real life? You may begin discussing a new work project, changing responsibilities, hiring someone, finding a specialist, or restructuring your schedule. This is a good time to analyze your workflow and remove tasks that consume a great deal of time while producing very little result. This transition becomes especially important because Venus will station retrograde in Scorpio on October 3rd. So a work-related story that becomes more visible during the final days of September will continue developing throughout the fall. Working conditions may be reconsidered, relationships with coworkers may change, responsibilities may be redistributed, your pricing may need adjustment, and the balance between work and personal life may need to be completely rethought. Not every decision made at the end of September needs to be finalized immediately. For now, it is more important to recognize which part of your everyday system no longer supports your new plans. Gemini, September connects several important processes in your life. The new moon opens a new chapter involving home, family, and your living situation, while the full moon helps clarify the future of collaborative projects, your social circle, and your larger goals. Uranus continues changing you personally, which means many external decisions are simply reflecting the fact that your old lifestyle is gradually becoming less compatible with who you are now. Jupiter expands communication, education, and new connections, while Mars entering your third house at the end of the month significantly accelerates these themes. At the same time, Venus begins a story that will continue through the fall and asks you to look more closely at work, your daily life, and how much time remains for what genuinely matters to you. By the end of September, it becomes much clearer what kind of personal foundation you want to create, which goals you are ready to continue developing, and which ideas truly deserve more space in your life. I love you and I'm sending you a big hug, dear Geminis.